Thank you, Barney, for the introductory reading, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out on such a beautiful evening. I hope you've all had a lovely afternoon in the sunshine. I want us to consider briefly for the next half an hour or so evidence of a designer. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the natural world, and in particular pick up three animals within the natural world and to look at the design of them and the way they are designed and how it all fits together. And you may be sat there thinking, I've come to hear a Bible talk. Why am I hearing about the natural world? Well, firstly, I'm passionate about the natural world. And I believe there's lots of lessons that we can learn from the natural world if we look at the natural world. And we can see in its design the complexity and the way it seems to all fit together. And when I look at the natural world, I come to the conclusion that there must be a designer. It can't have happened by chance. And what I hope to show you is that we can find evidence of a designer when we look at the natural world, and the answer of who that designer is found within the Bible. So what we're going to cover over the next 30 minutes or so is firstly a bit more about why. What is the point of this subject here this evening? I then want us to think about the current world thinking. How does the world think we got to be where we are today? How life came to be as we know it. I then want us to look at the creeping things, the fish of the sea and the fowls of the air, as we had described for us in Genesis chapter 1. And within those, I want us to consider the cheetah, dolphin, and the albatross. And you'll hear my reasons for those later on. I then want us to briefly consider man, and to see some of the differences that we have for us recorded in the Bible between man and the animals and the creatures that we're considering it. And we'll look at the reason for that, and then what the Bible has to say about some of the questions pertinent to that. And then finally, and arguably most importantly, what is the relevance to you? How does this talk affect you in day-to-day life? And why should you hear the message that is contained within it, and more importantly, within the Bible that is before you? So firstly, proof of a designer. And this is some ideas that I want to put forward, a couple of reasons to why I think there is proof of a designer. So firstly, just look at the natural world around us. As I said in my opening remarks, I'm sure many of you have been enjoying the sun this afternoon. And we know that we are exactly the right distance away from the sun to not be too cold or too hot. And that follows on to the second point. The ecosystems that we have on this earth fit together so perfectly. And when you consider it from a holistic approach, it works with everything having a place and a purpose within those systems. When species are lost or reintroduced to those ecosystems, they balance themselves out. And there's many examples of that all over the world. My next point is around experiencing nature can be life-changing. I've had the privilege to spend time with wild elephants in Africa. And when you're up close and personal with a creature like that, it creates a feeling deep inside you that you cannot comprehend. And if that all happens by chance, why would you have a connection to those animals? And we will see why later on. And then I challenge you as an audience to look at any part of the creation record that we had read for us at the start. That there is so much complexity from the stars in the heaven to the ground underneath our feet, that there is evidence of a designer in the natural world wherever you look. Because my starting point for this talk is that the God in the Bible is the creator of the heavens and the earth. And there's many other talks that you can hear from this platform about our beliefs and other reasons that we have for that. So, what does the world think at the moment about how the world came to be? Well, we have up here a statement from National Geographic that says billions of years ago, Earth, along with the rest of our solar system, was entirely unrecognisable, existing only as an enormous cloud of dust and gas. Eventually, a mysterious occurrence, one that even the world's foremost scientists have yet been unable to determine. Created a disturbance in that dust cloud, setting forth a string of events that would lead to the formation of life as we know it. And so this is what National Geographic, a well-represented magazine, has to say on the current world thinking regarding how the world come to be. But what I find really interesting is National Geographic still has that statement that I've highlighted in yellow in the middle of that. Scientists are still unable to determine how life came to be and how life was formed. And so when we look at the world, one of the reasons I'm putting forward the idea of a designer is due to the complexity, rather than any of the theories that man would suggest to you. Because we as Christadelphians believe that the world was created in 6 days, just as we have recorded for us in Genesis chapter 1. But to move on to some of the reasons for evidence of the designer, I want us firstly to consider the cheetah. And now I will freely admit this is my favourite animal, and so I've had to cut down my knowledge on this to fit it in with the time scale. And so just to provide a bit of background before we look at the complexity of their design, cheetahs inhabit a broad section of Africa, all the way from North Africa to South Africa. However, there is also a small population that live in Iran, but are critically endangered with less than 50 individuals. Cheetahs thrive in areas with vast expanses of land, where prey is abundant. And cheetahs live in a variety of habitats, primarily in grasslands and savannas. And that's important to remember when we look at their designs. Because I now want us to consider 4 aspects of their design that show how well they are suited for their environment. So the first aspect is their speed. Cheetahs are recognised as one of the greatest runners on the planet. The anatomy of this animal maximises agility and velocity, achieving speeds of up to 70 miles an hour, making it the fastest animal with legs on the planet. One of these cats' most prominent characteristics is their light body weight, which helps them gaining speed faster. On top of that, they have small heads and long legs to get the best out of aerodynamics laws. Also, their flexible spine allows for extreme extension during the run. Being able to flex as much as cheetahs do help them to rotate their hips and the scapula in ways that incentivize speed. And to do this, the cat's spines do not only have the same flexibility. Each of the vertebrae has great freedom of movement. Whereas ours are rigid and sort of stuck in the same positions, cheetahs can flex and expand to allow its front and hind limbs to overlap, as you can see on the screen, giving the cheetah more distance per stride. And so whilst it is sprinting, it actually spends more time in the air than on the ground. And if you're an Olympic sprinter, that's what you're looking for. To spend less time on the ground and more time in the air. And another way that they do this is they only have 1 foot on the ground at the time. And so these cats are swimming high speeds for short bursts, but they do take 30 minutes to fully recover after having chased their prey. And so they are set up to succeed and be successful in their environment in ways that other big cats are not, showing that they are designed in this way to hit the gap in the market. And the next follows on from the speed of a cheetah. Because prey has little chance outrunning a cheetah in a straight line. So they figured out that they need to change direction often, turning, twisting, and jumping to make their getaway. However, a cheetah counters that with their tail. While most cats, like a house cat, would have a fluffy tail, the cheetah tail actually has a flat surface like a rudder, and it helps the cheetah to perform sharp turns at high speed. By swinging the tail from side to side, it acts as a counterbalance, allowing the cheetah to control its steering and keep its balance. And you can see that working on the screen. As the cheetah turns right, the tail is going left. If that was not enough, a cheetah's semi-retractable claws, contrary to other big cats, never fully retract. And so they're always ready to provide powerful traction when in contact with the ground. Other design features for the cheetah include wide nostrils, a powerful heart, and large lungs to allow more oxygen to the muscles to facilitate this high-speed sprinting. The next design feature I want us to consider is the eyes and the face of the cheetah. Because cheetahs have long black lines that run down their face from their eyes to their mouth, called malar stripes, as you can see on the screen. And these malar stripes, or malar marks, are a design feature for deflecting the brightest sunlight off the horizon or the wide open savannas, allowing them to see better in daylight. They help the cheetah focus on the prey while they're hunting. And so, unlike the big cats, they actually hunt during the day, which is another cool design feature with the malar marks. And having been designed for such a dry environment in the middle of Africa, cheetahs can easily go 4 days without water and survive up to 10 days without it. This doesn't mean, though, that they don't get any liquids at all. As it turns out, cheetahs will draw water from the animals that they hunt, kill, and eat. And so they are perfectly designed for living in Africa. The final aspect of the design of cheetah I want us to consider is actually to do with cheetah cubs. Because cheetah cubs have a mane on their back. And if you look at the photo, you can see the white tusks on top of the cheetah head there. And this enables them to blend in with the tall grass in the savannah. And their brown spots on the fur also allow them to be camouflaged while stalking prey and hiding from predators. Because cheetah cubs are hunted by lions or by baboons to rule out other competition. And so while the mother goes off to hunt and the cheetah cubs are left at home, the cubs have to hide for themselves. And so this mane and these spots help them to hide in the grass until the mother returns. Another unique design feature of cheetahs to help in this situation is actually their vocal cords. Other big cats like lions, tigers, jaguars and leopards have a different vocal cord and so allow themselves to roar. I'm sure many of you have heard a lion roar at a zoo. On the other hand, a cheetah and a house cat have little voice boxes that enable them to purr continuously, but limits the range. However, in the African savannah, this distinguishes a cheetah. So when a mother returns to its cubs, it can call out and it will be recognizable. So these are just 4 elements of their makeup, which points to a designer rather than any other theory. The next animal I want us to consider is from the sea, and it's Megan's favourite animal, which is how it ended up in here. And I want us to consider the common bottlenose dolphin, because these dolphins are found throughout the world, in both offshore coastal waters, harbours, bays, gulfs, and estuaries of temperate and tropical waters. And I'm sure some of you have been lucky enough to see dolphins off the coast of this country, because they are found from Japan to Australia, from southern California to Chile. And in the Atlantic Ocean are found from Nova Scotia to Patagonia, and from Norway to the tip of South Africa. They are the most abundant species of dolphin in the world. And so this means that they are one of the most well-studied marine mammals in the wild. And in addition, they are easy to view because they live close to shore and are distributed throughout the world. Which means that we can gather some evidence of why they have been designed in such ways for them to succeed all across the world. And so just as we did with the cheetah, I want us to consider 4 elements of their design that shows the uniqueness of the dolphin. So the first one is their group dynamics. Being mammals, dolphins rely on social learning and relationships to survive. And in these groups, the pods as they're called, they play, babysit, alert each other to danger like predators, practice courtship, and hunt together. And for dolphins, travelling in a group compensates for their smaller body size when there's animals like orca out there. Additionally to this, dolphins sleep with one half of their brain at a time, while the other half remains alert and active, and can do so on the move. And so travelling in a group allows dolphins to rest while still having awareness of the environment around them. And social order in this pod of dolphins is created and maintained through communication of all forms, because dolphins rely on the information of others for survival and security. And we'll look at communication next. But group dynamics and the way they are designed in the neurological pathways help them succeed in the oceans to be one of the most populous animals around the world. So the second element of their design that we're considering builds upon the group dynamics, as bottlenose dolphins are described as the kings of communication of the sea. Because they send each other messages in very different ways. They click and whistle, but also use body language, leaping out of the water for joy, snapping their jaws in anger, and even butting heads. However, in general, dolphins make typically 2 kinds of sounds, whistles and clicks. Clicks are used to sense their surroundings through echolocation, which is roughly the same system as radars on the submarines. So this means that they emit sound waves and then detect and interpret the echoes that bounce back off other creatures and objects in the water around them, allowing them to build up a picture of their surroundings. And so this means that dolphins can hunt using their highly developed echolocation in murky water or at night. And not only that, but they can use it to hunt prey that might be hiding in the sand. And so this echolocation provides them with an advantage. And while they use whistles to communicate with other members of their species in the pods, and very likely with other species too, it's also thought that dolphins have a unique whistle, like a signature whistle, that's relevant to every individual. And scientists believe each dolphin's mother assigns it a unique signature at birth, sort of like a name, to help with locating each other in larger group settings, because there have been pods of over 200 dolphins sighted before. So this shows how their communication skills have been designed to be successful in their environments. The third aspect is slightly different, because I want us to think about their play. Because dolphins, as younger animals, play in the waves, as you can see on the screen. However, play is essential for dolphins in developing the skills that are needed for group dynamics, for communicating, and for hunting. Play provides opportunities for dolphin calves to practice and perfect the locomotor skills like we do as children when we're playing tag. It also allows them to learn important social skills and acquire information about the characteristics and predispositions of members in their social group, particularly their peers. And it teaches them how to behave. So play provides opportunities for them to learn how to think. And they do this by creating different games under safe conditions. And this allows them to develop their brains in such a way that is needed to develop the echolocation skills that are needed when hunting. This element of their makeup allows them to be much smarter than their prey, allowing them to be successful in their environments. And the final thing I want us to consider is the speed of the dolphin. Now, a dolphin clocked at 22.5 miles an hour might not sound like much, but given that humans can only swim 4 miles an hour, you suddenly realise how quick that is in water. And when scientists used a hydrodynamic model and what they knew about the dolphin's size and power, they concluded that there was no way dolphins could move that fast without some fluid dynamics wizardry, and such as some special techniques to modify the flow of water and reduce the amount of drag. And this became known as what's known as Gray's paradox, which is then used to create the special swimsuits that were used in 2009 to break all the swimming world records in pools. And they do this by the streamlinedness of the skin and then also blowing bubbles around their body. And this creates a smoother liquid for them to move through, which allows them to increase their speed in water. And this shows how they're designed in such a way to be incredibly successful in their respective environment. The final animal I want us to consider is the albatross. Now, most albatross species range across the southern hemisphere, from the Antarctica to South America to Australia and New Zealand. However, there are a few species that range across North Pacific as well. And albatrosses feed primarily on squid and small fish, which they catch from the surface of the water, as well as discarded offal from fishing vessels as they process their catch. And so we'll look at a couple of aspects of design that show how the albatross is successful, because it spends most of its life far out to sea, where land is hundreds of kilometres away. And they do that by effortless flight. And you'll see why I describe it like that, because they can fly for several miles without a single flap. And this remarkable feat is accomplished by not only riding ocean winds, because albatross catch up skyward updrafts to carry them along, and once their wings are fully extended, they have a tendon that locks their wings in place. So no energy is spent to keep them outstretched. And no other flying creature on this earth can match the distance travelled by an albatross without beating its wings. It's almost like putting your car on cruise control on the motorway, and then you can take your feet off the pedals and just concentrate on steering. Another design element that aids this effortless flight is arguably what albatross are most famous for, which is their incredible wingspans. And the wandering albatross, which is the largest of the species, can measure a wingspan from 8 to 11 feet from tip to tip. So in modern money, that's between 3 to 4 meters. And this gives it one of the largest wingspans of any bird in the sky, providing more evidence for the design of the species to succeed in its environment. The next design feature I want us to consider is the fact that they actually mate for life, and more importantly, how they do this. because these birds seek out a life partner with the use of a ritualized dance. And once they have chosen their life partner, they remain together until death, which, given the lifespan of these birds, they can last for 50 years or longer. The albatross only visit land to breed and to care for their chicks, which makes them incredibly rare for us to see, and even when nesting, they choose remote islands. And when they meet up and this ritualized dance is enacted, each albatross remembers and not only accepts what the other half might have done 10 or 15, 20 years ago. And so they have these memories that are contained within them. And when you think that I can barely remember what I had for lunch yesterday, it is quite impressive that they will remember these dances after not seeing them for 15 or 20 years. So these are some of the reasons why we have considered these three animals and some of the design features that I think point to the evidence of a designer and how perfectly suited they are for their environments. But I want us to now consider what the Bible has to say about the creation of man and why the God of the Bible designed man. So we have for us on the screen Genesis 1 and verse 26. And it reads, "And God said, let us make man in our image and after our likeness." And I just want us to pause there for a second, because I want us to briefly consider mankind and look at what the Bible has to say on how we are designed, because we see that we are made in our image, and that's God talking there. And we can see that the complexity of man is staggering. We could spend many more hours dissecting the complexity of mankind, from the way we run, to how our eyes process information, to the way our lungs withdraw oxygen from the air. And when you look at the statistics of us ending up like this by chance, it boggles the mind, because it would be like winning the lottery every week for the next 47 years. But it's important to note here in the verse that we were made in the image of God, and that makes us special. If the God in the Bible says that we were made in his image, then we should sit up and take notice of that fact. The significance is that we are special. We were designed for a purpose, and we will look at that purpose shortly. But I want us to consider the second half of the verse. Because we see here that we are told that man will have dominion over creation. Because the rest of the verse reads, "And them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." And this message is repeated in verse 28 as well. And when you consider man compared to the animals, we are superior. Our brain functions on a much higher level than any other animals. We still do have dominion and are far superior to any other animal. For thousands of years, cheetahs were pets to many people. Dolphins are meant to be the next smartest to us, and yet they don't have schools and universities and places to do research. And sailors used to eat albatross as a source of sustenance, as they are only one of the creatures that live so far out to sea. And so when you look at the animal kingdom, there are very few animals that actually pose a threat to humans. And with many of them, we can train and tame so many of them. We can see from the Bible, God has provided us with an innate ability to have dominion over the rest of the creation. And the Bible tells us why. It provides evidence to this phenomenon that man struggles to explain. So how is this relevant to you? Because I'm putting forward that the God of the Bible is the God who created the heavens and the earth and everything that is in them. And we have that recorded for us in the Bible. And we see in verse 31 of Genesis chapter 1 what he says about his creation. It says, "And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day." God was pleased with his creation, and you can understand why. Just as I talked about at the start of this address, you can see how beautiful the natural world is, and continue to marvel and be awestruck by it. He tells us it was very good, but why did he create it? Why is it relevant to you and to me to consider the God of the Bible is the designer of the heavens and the earth? And he designed man as today. Why did he design the world in such a way for the animals with the detail and intricacy, and for man to be designed to have dominion over them? And the answer is to fulfill the purpose that God has established for you and for me. And the purpose that God wants us to fulfill is recorded for us in the Bible. In Habakkuk 2 and verse 14, it says, "For the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea." This is the purpose to why we were created in such a way. Why we were created in his image, to give glory to him. The animals cannot do that. God wants us to be special, to be different, to be above the animals. And no animals can give praise to him like we are able to do. They cannot sing and give praise. They are not able to go to him in prayer. He wants everyone in the world to be able to be a part of that glory. You just have to be willing to accept this opportunity. Because we see in Mark 13 and verse 26, they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with power and great glory. Jesus Christ, that is recorded in the Bible, will return. And there are many other talks that cover this subject. He will establish a kingdom of God on this earth. And he is looking for people who want to fulfill the purpose of God to be a part of that kingdom. And so if you are interested in hearing more about the God of the Bible and his son's soon return and what that will mean for the rest of the world, then there are many more talks given that speak on this subject, that talk of this amazing kingdom that is going to be set up on earth, where wolves shall lie with the sheep, and their world will revert to a Garden of Eden, just as we have recorded for us in Genesis chapter 1. Thank you.